This happened to me a few years back when I was in my early 20s. At the time I worked in a department store at makeup counter. The job relies heavily on good customer service and building relationships. Because you want people to keep coming back to spend money on your products. We are given personalized business cards so that we can build our own client base. Very important for commission department. It's not uncommon to be familiar with the people who frequent shop in the store. As workers, our training is focused being friendly and accommodating. One day, while I was working, I had to move a makeup counter that wasn't my own cover someone's lunch break. It was a real slow day, so I was just leaning on the counter, people watching. I could tell most shoppers were just browsing, so I kept to myself. One of the people that I noticed was very tall and broad man. He walked very slow, almost hunched over. His face was fixed, very aggressive, like he was angry, but focused. He circled around the counter a few times, but I could feel his gaze on me instead of the products. After a few rotations around the department, I decided to greet him in case he needed help. It wasn't until he came direct over to me that I realized just how big he actually was. I'm a 4'10", 140-pound female, so I feel pretty small regardless, but even with his slouched posture he was over 6 feet tall and well over twice my weight. I'll never forget his teeth. They were completely black in the front. Your eyes couldn't help but go right to them. Despite his menacing appearance, he was soft-spoken. Truthful, I could tell he wasn't tall there by the way he talked. He told me no when I asked if he needed help, but requested my number. Help but go right to them. Despite his menacing appearance, he was soft-spoken. Truthful, I could tell he wasn't tall there by the way he talked. He told me no when I asked if he needed help, but requested my number. Only a couple minutes later the phone on the counter rings. I answer with a peppy customer service voice and say, "Thank you for calling, makeup brand name. How can I help you?" And immediately I know it is the same guy. When he starts talking, he asks me again for my personal number, and I explain once again that I cannot do that. But he just wants to talk, he explains. Since he wasn't getting the hint, I say, "I should have told you that I'm married. You can't have my number." Politely he apologizes and hangs up. I thought that would be the end of him, but for the next few weeks, and he would lurk around the counter looking for me. Anytime I would see him, I'd immediately drop what I was doing to run, and hide or run to the closest customer, and offer a bit of assistance to make it look like I was busy so he wouldn't talk to me. I successfully dodged him every time, and it came to the point where I stopped seeing him. I was thrilled. I had almost completely forgotten about him until one day I decided to go to Walmart by myself to pick up a few things on my day off. I generally like to shop alone. I can take all the time I need, and I like leisure looking around. I grabbed a basket and made my way over to the cosmetic/hair/wellness section, since that's where most of the things I needed were. I only managed to grab a few things before I was locked eyes with him as I walked by the supplement aisle. I had recently changed my hair color and wasn't wearing my work uniform, so I didn't think he'd realize who I was. I was ready to just go about my shopping and ignore him until I noticed that he dropped the items he had on him hand and started heading my way. I panicked and stiffened my pace immediately. I thought to myself, he's not going to real follow you through the store, right? But I turned around to look. I could see his humongous body just plowing through people, with the same terrifying look on his face, only meaner, his black teeth growing closer with a snarl. Since the direction I was wailing was the opposite of the exit, and there was no way in hell I was going to turn around, I decided that my best course of action would be to follow the perimeter of the store and cut down the center section, which would bring me close to the registers. I speed walked the entire time, in the hopes of losing amongst all the people, but never once turned around again. By the time I made it to the register area, I could actually feel him behind me. Still not wanting to turn around to look, I glanced in the reflection of the sold machines that are in between the register aisles to see how close he was. To my horror, there was only about 1.5 to 2 feet between us. I was afraid to just drop my stuff and run out the door in case he followed me to my car. I parked in the far back of the parking lot and didn't want to risk it. I also didn't want to get in line at the registers, since the lines were long and I would be standing out in the open alone. Instead, I walked into the cluster of people crowded around the self-checkout line. I noticed another large, but older gentleman with his carriage in the middle and ran straight for him. The people were so closely clustered together that the man following me couldn't make it through. I ran over to the man in line and grabbed on his carriage. I said, "I'm so sorry, I'm not cutting you, but there's a man that's been following me through half of the store, and I need to stand with you." He was so sweet and let me be with him while we waited in line, and even let me go ahead of him so I could leave quicker. As I was cashing out, I could see in my peripheral vision my stalker staring at me and pacing about, but he couldn't come near me since the self-checkout is somewhat sectioned off. By the time I had finished and grabbed my receipt, I couldn't see him anymore. I looked around, but he was nowhere. I thought about asking the older man to walk me to my car, but he still wasn't finished at his register, so I decided to call my boyfriend and make a run for it. Staying on the phone, I explained to him what was going on as I sprinted to my car in tears. I frantically looking around in case he tried to follow me outside. I made it to my car safe and rushed right home, breaking down to my parents about what just happened. I could feel it in my bones that that man wanted to do something to me, and thankful I didn't find out what that was. He's aggressive and palpable to this day. I can still remember the adrenaline, nervousness, the sheer terror I felt when he followed me. I had never felt so vulnerable and helpless, even with all of those people around. I quit that job roughly 2 years later. I had only seen him one other time there since the incident, but I still live in constant fear that we will cross paths again. I'm afraid to shop alone, something that I wouldn't give a second thought to years before. So to my stalker with the black teeth, let's not meet again.